Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, Capital Markets Analyst and host of your Cannabis Business Podcast. Today we are on site. Kelly Ogilve is the founder and CEO of Deepcell. Ruby is one of their products. So you've got Emerald, some gel caps, some gummies. Thanks for being on the podcast. So how did you become the founder and CEO?
So Deepcell was founded about 4 years ago. There's sort of a dual story. It was professional in one sense that I was working for Governor Inslee at the time, and I was part of the rulemaking group for Cannabis at 502 back then. And the other was my sister has epilepsy, and so for her, medical marijuana was something that totally changed her life and saved her life. So it was both professional and personal, and those were the motivations to get in 2016. So we entered the medical space with our first branded product, which is the Ruby sugar. And Ruby was a THC-infused sugar. We filed a patent on how we do this process back in 2016. In 2017, we received a patent from the U.S. Patent Office. We were one of 29 recipients of patents back then.
And how many of them were similar products?
Zero. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of ways to do cannabis sugar. Some people spray oil on top.
Right.
Some of those products exist in the market today. Our process is actually literally crystallizing the cannabinoids within the structure of sugar and salt. So it's kind of like freezing a blueberry in an ice cube. It's like putting it in states. It's kind of like Encino Man. Mm-hmm. Like you're sort of freezing something until it's ready to be used. So, well, why is that important? It's important because it prevents oxidation, meaning it won't spoil or break down. It acts as like a vehicle to get it into liquids. So in sugar crystals, you put it into your coffee or tea, it will dissolve in the liquid and leave the cannabinoids suspended in the liquid itself. Whereas if you spray the oil on it, it will separate into like two layers. Like there'll be oil slick on top. And so if I were to drink a sip, you get all of the cannabinoid oil in that sip. Whereas with the process of infusion, every sip is homogenized. And so there's a lot of interest, I think, from the industry in the pantry stuffing or the ingredient concept. So the product launched in the medical space was in about 40 dispensaries in the medical days. In 502, the product then went from 40 stores to 90, then to about 200 plus stores. And then we've been out of the Washington market for about a year. We're coming back to the Washington market.
Why?
There were some issues with quality. There were some issues with getting the agreement right with our partner. It didn't work out for a variety of reasons. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But we're back now, coming to the Washington market. This product actually is available in Oregon today, so you can actually go to Oregon pot shops and buy the infused sugar. It launches across Canada in February. It launches in Nevada in February, and then hopefully California sometime Q1 of 2020. So we don't actually manufacture any of the stuff. We file patents, we create the brands, and then we license them into the industry and take a royalty on everything sold. So we're a passive, the revenue is passive, but we're active in the R&D side. So we're almost like an outsourced R&D shop. We do hardcore R&D. We file a bunch of patents. We take those innovations and then take them to processors who are looking for innovation or looking for segmentation of brands.
So are you introducing these products to the producer processors to manufacture? You're doing all of the research and development and having them manufacture it?
Correct.
So it's not like you're finding these products and then financing it and then distributing it.
No.
You're making them.
We build them from the ground up.
Right.
And with the exception of Emerald, which is the tinctures and gel caps, most of the stuff we do is incredibly unique, and that's part of I think the value proposition. There's a technology advantage. There is real tech. There's an Intel inside. It's deceptively simple. It's sugar, like an iPhone.
I want to unpack that because
Yeah.
in 2015, this was a very, very rare thing because people were at that time spraying gummies, and when you spray stuff, it's not going to absorb, and it's not the proper way of doing anything.
Right. It's very low tech.
Yeah. So if you were, I'm going to make a really bad analogy, but if you were going to stain a deck in really cold weather, it's going to be on the surface. If you put a rug on it or anything and then lift it up, it's going to come right off.
That's right.
So when you open up sugar that's been sprayed on, what happens is the oil is on the inside of the Mylar bag or whatever.
Yes.
And just like you mentioned, the sodas of 2015 were not water soluble.
Right.
They weren't emulsified properly.
Right.
And so when you look at the very top, there were rings. I actually saw one that had plant material in it, and it was green from mold.
Yeah.
So seeing the oil on the top is really ingrained in my head.
Yeah.
But you managed to knock that out half a decade ago almost?
Yeah. I'd say we got the patent. Yeah, I guess so. 5 years ago, you're right.
Time flies.
It does. Yeah, half a decade ago, you're right. Yeah.
And so are you seeing from cannabis and coffee, or is there any mainstream applications that you are anticipating? We're doing a 2020 prediction. I want to ask you about your crystal ball later on in the segment.
Yeah.
But for now, what applications do you have from you with Constellation Brands putting in $4.5 billion? That's pretty enticing for companies to chase that money.
Totally.
Are you chasing dollars, or are you staying true to your mission, vision? How's that going, and who's knocking on your door?
Good question. So there's a lot packed into that, and I'll try and unpack it.
Yeah.
We are staying true to the core mission of the organization, which is tech development, product development, licensing. But we're exploring the CBD opportunity now that CBD is booming in the marketplace. Very crowded, very noisy. It's a sales-driven environment on CBD right now. There's a brand popping up literally every minute, I guess. There's something new popping up every single day. What is incredibly unique about what we're doing with the ingredients is there's not a lot of people playing upstream at the ingredients level. So you have a lot of people producing gummies, tinctures, gel caps, cookies, yoga pants. Like there's CBD Mueller report, there's CBD everything, literally CBD everything out there. What goes into those products? And so upstream from that, there are only several building blocks. There are sugars, there are salts, there's xylitols, there's starches, there's oil bases, there's lipids. And we look at that environment and go, how do we become the picks and shovels of the gold rush? Sugar and salt, those are things that we think are a tremendous opportunity for us, especially on CBD and THC. So what we did on the THC side was we began to offer not just consumer-facing teaspoons, but saying, okay, product developers and processors, are you interested in an infused sugar? And the answer was overwhelmingly yes. There's a strong demand from the licensed THC processors for infused sugars and salts, because they were tired of dealing with butter. They were tired of dealing with really dense, resinous distillate. Even high quality distillate's really hard to handle. I mean, if you've been to a processing lab, there's tons of these mats that are just caked with resin.
And a lot of people would argue with you that oil and butter would be the ingredient to go to, but because it's messy.
There's lots of reasons why you use butter and oil. I'm not demonizing butter and oil. All we're doing is providing a different tool to formulate with. Butter's hard to formulate in liquids. Like, I don't want to drink butter with my water. Some people like butter in their coffee for bulletproof coffee. I personally don't want to put butter in my tea. I want to put sugar in my tea, or I want to drink a carbonated beverage with sugar or sugar-free sweetener, not butter. So because oil and water literally don't mix, we just created a clever methodology to get it into the liquid material. That was the whole point of the sugar and salt. The salt, so circling back to answer your original question, the salt is very interesting because a lot of products in the market are sweet. They're gummies, they're cookies, they're chocolates. It's indulgence, it's sugar, it's dessert, it's a treat. Salt is used in every meal. That's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So the interest we've seen for the salt has come from chefs, the culinary foodies who are like, oh, I want to sprinkle this salt on my hamachi kama, like on their sushi or on their matzo ball soup. We think it's going to unlock a whole new corner of the edibles universe. And so to answer your question, the knocks on our door are from processors on the THC side for the sugar, for the most part. There's not really a market for savory edibles yet. That's coming. On the CBD side, the interest is coming from large companies who want to explore. They're not ready to jump in, but then a lot of chefs. People who want to, the cannabis explorers, the people who want to throw parties and infuse and take their own recipes to the next level. That's what's driving interest in the ingredients on the consumer side on CBD.
So the medical side, so I want to touch on your sister with epilepsy, because that's kind of how I got involved in the industry a little bit as well. With a soda company, the founder has epilepsy, and that was her medicine, her way of surviving. And yet it's a sugary soda. So touching on 2 points is one medical and one what's available. Yeah. So I just was a judge for the High Times Cup in Oregon. I did the edibles, and they were all sugar-based. The lemonades, the gummies, and it just got really old.
Yeah.
What about the sativa daytime snacks, whether it's nuts or just a trail mix? Is there some healthy alternatives? How have you helped your sister with CBD or THC, with cannabis, with her epilepsy? And when do you expect a more healthy alternative to hit the market?
Yeah, these are really good questions, and unpack that one too. Let me start with my sister. My sister, So she had really severe epilepsy, and so she had grand mal. There's like two types of epilepsy, like grand mal seizures, and then there's like the little brain hiccups where you kind of like have brain farts and you're sort of miswired for a minute. She had the former, which is the really bad seizures. Injured her shoulders, dislocated her knees, like really bad stuff. So she had surgery, and of course the doctors prescribed her opiates. She gets hooked on those opiates. She was hooked on Oxycontins for 7 years.
Wow.
Just devastated her for a long time. She kicked the habit, but she was left without a good solution for her pain, and her epilepsy was pretty bad. She tried everything from meditation to acupuncture to lots of aspirin. It didn't work, but she tried medical marijuana with CBD, and it changed her life. So she went from 8 medications to 2. She can sleep. Her epilepsy is completely under control. She uses it to deal with her pain, anxiety. She's a much happier human being. She's one of the biggest advocates for cannabis that I know. What we do for her is she uses the CBD sugar almost every single day. What she'll do is she'll put a teaspoon into her coffee in the morning. Actually, it takes maybe a little more than a teaspoon, and she just drinks it every single day as part of her maintaining that balance. So for her, she uses the sugar. And would she want a healthy alternative? Yeah, she probably does. The salt is something she's not really into. The sugar is just something it's easy for her. She has like this habit now of doing it. We are seeing a very strong demand for healthy alternatives to sugar. So we created a product called Ruby Light, which is a plant-based sugar-free sweetener, xylitol. The salt, some people would argue salt isn't healthier, which I can buy that argument. Too much salt's bad for you as well. But right now, that's the offering that we have. When it comes to healthy alternatives, I don't really know what there is in cannabis that you can call relatively healthy. Combusting, it's not good for the lungs. Vaping is probably on the safer side, independent of this whole vaping sort of scare with all those bad ingredients, pesticides. Topicals are good for localize, but in terms of getting your longer term relief for people like my sister, ingesting it is the way to go. And so for her, I guess she can try gummies, but she doesn't like gummies. She likes the sugar. That's for her. When it comes to health, there is one thing that I think has been popping up quite a bit in the market that people aren't aware of these risks. So CBD water, CBD spritzer, nano CBD, all this rush to put these nanoparticles into the marketplace. If you were to do just a cursory search on the internet for nanoparticles, the first things that pop up are health risks. Time out. Nanoparticles, they are used by pharma to bypass the systems, the body systems, to prevent them from getting into the body in the first place. They cross the blood-brain barrier easily. They go from mother to child. They can accumulate in the muscle tissues, and the body has no defense mechanism to expunge them. So we don't know. We're not saying, hey, don't trust these things. What we're saying is, at least from our perspective, is there are unquantified, unknown risks to nanoparticles. And this isn't us saying it, this is Health Canada saying it. This is Nature Magazine saying it. This is some of the most reputable folks in pharma who work on nanoparticles saying, that might be dangerous, we just don't know what's happening. And it's not because cannabinoids are dangerous. What's potentially dangerous is the fact that, so most people don't know this, cannabis is a powerful bioremediator. It pulls stuff out of the ground, heavy metals, toxins. It is one of the world's most effective remediation plants out there. It's like algae and hemp are incredible. It was planted at Chernobyl after Chernobyl to pull the nuclear stuff out of the ground. That's how good it is. So I think we have to be aware that when you're pulling distillates out of these materials, which are concentrated forms of a powerful bioremediator, what else is in there besides 92% cannabinoids? What's the other 8%? And you're taking those compounds, nanoparticleizing them, which then allows them to move through the body and accumulate differently. They can be powerful magnifiers of things like heavy metals and pesticides and other toxins. So I think when it comes to the nanoparticle world today, it's not they're dangerous. It's how are you encapsulating it with a nanoparticle, and what are you encapsulating? Like, do you know that your distillate isolate is completely free of any potential harms? Because nanoparticles will magnify those things by multiple times. So when it comes to health, there's a lot to talk about. I mean, this is the underbelly of the cannabis realm. There's a lot of huge potential for therapy with this plant, but we have to be thoughtful. There's a rush to put cannabinoid products into the marketplace that hack the brain. We should be thoughtful and careful. So I, for one, am all for regulation. I don't want over-regulation, but I think that creates the boundaries for what is and is not in bounds. And you see with the vaping thing, people with vitamin E acetate, tocopherols, they're safe, right? You use them on your skin, you can eat them, totally natural, totally safe. Not when you inhale them, causes lipoid pneumonia. Or this pesticide kills powdery mildew, shouldn't be a problem. Concentrate it, people or inhale it, they vaporize it, causes chemical lung damage to tissue in the lungs. These are all the things that happen in a black market. So legalization creates consumer safety, it creates what's in and out of bounds, it creates testing regimes. That's where I think this industry is going, sort of jumping you to 2020. Regulation is going to lead to more trust leads to more sales leads to more investment, so on and so on. That's what I think is going to happen.
I want to make one caveat and say that I would agree with you to the extent that regulation helps with information, but legalization is what's going to make the biggest changes because there's a lot of pseudoscience.
Yes.
So Eagle 20 is an herbicide that when heated up or combusted turns into a carcinogen.
Yeah.
You know, this I don't think it's malicious intent for vitamin E acetate. It's simply that there was a lot of naivete. A lot of people who didn't know what they were doing, they were ignorant about the facts, and so regulation isn't helping, legalization will. Because you're in a regulated market, people are doing whatever they want to do without federal oversight until something bad happens.
Right.
So with hemp coming out of China, there's a lot of heavy metal concerns. So you had mentioned you actually stopped selling in Washington because you were concerned about the quality of the product you were able to get. And so you're back in Washington. Where else are you expanding? I want to say congratulations on a $5 million raise for going into Canada? Is that right?
It's really to promote all the marketing launches across the markets we're in, and then to acquire new markets.
And where are those going to be?
So we're in 5 markets now. There's 11 legal states, 37 medical, 40 countries with legal cannabis. So we're looking at it from the perspective of, we have a pretty big filter. Big filter is basically what are the biggest market caps with the most likely market to accept these types of products, and we're sort of doing it from that perspective. So at the top of that list next is California, obviously. So people are really fired up about Canada, and we are too. It's going to be a huge market. California is going to be bigger. That just one state alone, it will be the biggest cannabis market in human history. Mm-hmm. All roads will lead to Rome, and that's Rome right now. Like that's the cultural epicenter of the world in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. Cannabis culture there is going to drive a lot of cultural shift across the industry, I think. We'll see. So California's number one. The next market we're looking at right now, beyond the markets that we're in, we're looking at the big states like Michigan, Illinois, Florida. Oklahoma is an interesting market because it's relatively small, but a very strong cannabis culture.
They have so many licenses. It's going to be like Oregon. Yeah. They have 7,000 licenses. So does Oregon, 6.5 years supply.
Yeah, but honestly, I'm with that because let the market figure it out. I hate these states that go, I shouldn't say hate the states. I dislike the policies that say, this is the number of licenses for the state, and we're going to funnel everyone into those channels, because then everyone is competing for the same shelf space. Let the market sort it out.
Should be an open market. What's your take, though, on Canadian companies that have halted their production in Latin America because of an oversupply, and yet in traditional ag, they just put those in silos? Why wouldn't you utilize Colombia's terroir and cheap labor and keep making it? Is it a nascent industry? Are these people not understanding how agriculture works, or am I naive?
No, you're not naive. I mean, if you see let's take Washington as a microcosm of your point. In Washington State, who's going out of business? It's the small indoor growers. The outdoor growers are crushing. They've driven the price down. Outdoor flower is 25 cents a gram.
And right now, the companies that are going out of business have million grams flash frozen for 7 to 8 cents. Now, that's a fire sale. They will not be in business next year. They're selling all of their lots. But you can get right now, after harvest, 7 to 8 cents a gram for million plus grams. I don't know how you stay in business with that. I mean,
make it up on volume. That's a joke. I mean, you don't. I mean, that's why the smaller growers are going away, and the bigger growers are there is a huge market for. Don't get me wrong. There's a huge market for indoor because you can control quality, get those specific genetics. You can control the environment, express the specific genes that get the profile right. Outdoor, it's like nature will do its own thing. You get some pests, and it will change the gene expression. Profile changes. So that outdoors providing a lot of low-cost material for blasting, for concentrates, edibles, things like that. Indoor grow, a lot of that has bag appeal. Really beautiful nugs, curated, trimmed, $3 a gram wholesale, like $4 a gram wholesale. That's what you're seeing for indoor. So to speak to your point, I think the future of this market is going to be mass production. I mean, farming prices go one direction, generally down. I mean, you've seen flower prices go one way, pretty much downward, along with all prices sort of falling with competition, supply, competence, all that stuff. I think you're 100% right. Farmers will be in the low-cost ag places in the world in the long term, no doubt about it. And then, assuming that exports and import laws allow importation of these materials into the United States, that's exactly the future.
So I want to touch on your $5 million raise, because right now the industry is interesting. We've seen Fibonacci retracements in a lot of the indexes exceeding 60%, and which, you could tell from our AI-based analytics review that right now might be a good time to get in, testing new support levels, but pretty close to the bottom.
Yeah.
So that might create a new wave. As consolidation comes in, new speculation might emerge. Yeah. I'm wondering, how was your raise structured? Is it a debt? Was it equity?
Yeah. We're in the middle of it now. So we're in it's constructed in two pieces, and a convertible note, which is a non-priced round, into a Series A priced equity round. And the reason we're doing that is because we're on the verge of these major launches. I don't want to price the equity today. I'd rather price it tomorrow, meaning 6 months from now, so 3 to 6 months from now. So the first component of it is essentially, it's debt with all these bells and whistles, pre-money cap, discount, coupon. There's a bunch of features that compensate, and the investors get a lot of benefit. If we're able to do what we're going to do in the next few months, with these major milestones, we'll have much better leverage heading into a Series A round with institutionals.
Do they have equity conversion options? Can they go from debt and convert that?
Yes. So the vehicle is intended. There's no call provision. So the note is always intended to convert to equity. We've done 2 rounds now of convertible notes. We've never just paid someone back their loan. Essentially, everything always converts to equity. That is the stated intention from the outset. It's in the documentation. Like, we're not just borrowing money from you. This is meant as a way for them to make an investment as the only opportunity we give them today. And they're essentially taking a little more risk for rate of return. And the company benefits by having the capital to promote all these launches in the marketplace.
I'm fascinated by the debt in cannabis, because I feel like that's a really big indicator of normalizing the industry. So to put it into perspective, MJBizCon, the world's largest conference in Vegas every year, it's coming up in a couple of weeks. They had an investment meeting in 2016 where the secrets to investing in the cannabis space was friends and family, a credit card, and a convertible note. And I wanted to walk out. I was so mad that I actually haven't really gone to many speaking events since, because I was so irritated by that year of just terrible advice and basic, boring thing. Not terrible advice, just really boring and basic. Whereas now you have debentures, you have a lot of debt financing, and a lot of things that normal entrepreneurs might not even mess with because of its complexity, and yet with cannabis you don't have any other option. And so I find it really fascinating that you can't bank, and yet you have warrants and rights and debentures and things that companies wouldn't want to mess with.
We're seeing many more types of exotic financial products in the market now, from convertible notes to vanilla equity raises to safes, which are sort of the new structure in finance for startups. We're seeing streaming contracts. That's an interesting new development. So a streaming contract, kind of like in the gold and mining space, someone gives you money up front to build your facility, but they get a 10% or 8% royalty for the life of the farm. Very clever. They're buying cash flow in the future. It's a very interesting structure, and kind of developed by Silver Wheaton in 2008, and now it's taking the world by storm in the mining space, and now even in hemp and cannabis. So you're seeing much more wizardry coming to the marketplace, derivative contracts, futures, option, like you're seeing a lot of cool stuff.
What is your crystal ball prediction for the industry? Where do you see it going? Where is your company? Where's Deepcell and all of your brands going to go?
Crystal ball. So I'm going to go way out in the future, 10 years.
All right.
That seems like a long time from now. In cannabis years, it's like dog years, like 20 years, whatever. So I think in 10 years from now, you're going to see a globally legalized marketplace for the most part. You'll have holdouts in Middle East and Southeast Asia, places like that. But for the most part, I think you're going to see the end of prohibition, and that market will be over $2 trillion. It's going to be much bigger than alcohol. So alcohol today is about $1.5 trillion, has about 2 billion consumers. Cannabis today, based on New Frontiers data, is about $348 billion, including black market. That's with the threat of incarceration and maybe execution in parts of the world. So what happens when actually the chains come off and mom can smoke a joint or have an edible, have some sugar in her tea with no threat or stigma? This industry is going to blow up. We know that THC has tremendous recreational value and therapeutic value. It's appetite stimulation in cancer patients and AIDS patients, helps with nausea for those same populations. CBD, on the other hand, ton of medical uses we know about. That's just 2 of the 113 characterized cannabinoids. What about the other 111? It is Mashulum calls it a treasure trove of cannabis. We're going to unlock those mysteries. And so the cannabis market is going to be freaking massive. It is the first tool in human history that we have to hack one of the core operating systems of the human body. Mm-hmm. This is not like vitamin C, where like maybe it nourishes your cells. No, you are now you have a lever to pull on the operating system that writes to the metal, the transistors of your brain and body. Mm-hmm. Not like Tinder at the top level of JavaScript. We're talking about base level operating system. We have a lever now. So
you're talking about the endocannabinoid system,
correct?
Right? We don't have an ibuprofen system.
No,
our bodies are made to accept THC, CBD, and the other 480 something cannabinoids.
Absolutely. So we're now right. We're in this realm where you have this tool that has been around for 5,000 years as medicine, but we didn't know how it worked until very recently. I think that's going to be the story of cannabis over the longer term, man. The rec is just the tip of the spear. The medical aspects and the wellness and nutraceutical aspects of it are going to explode this market.
What's going to be the catalyst for that to happen? Mexico's talking about being legal.
Yeah.
The U.S. is a huge barrier for global legalization because of their tariffs, the pressure they put on countries.
Yeah.
And so if Mexico legalizes and Canada's already legal, is that the catalyst, or I don't want words in your mouth?
Yeah, I don't know if that's the catalyst. I think it's, from a political perspective, it's very difficult to maintain prohibition for much longer. Simply because these markets are so... In Washington State, when I worked in the governor's office in 2014, I was in a budget meeting with Office of Financial Management, governor's office, and some other agencies. And in the budget meeting, the line item for cannabis, I'm looking at it, for tax revenue in the future was zero. Zero. Like, excuse me, it says zero. They're like, oh yeah, we're not sure if this is going to work. We don't know how much, we're going to not make that much money. It could fail. And I literally said, you have no idea. This is legal drugs. Like, you're going to print money in this industry. This year, $320 million in tax revenues. How can the federal government, with these states printing money in taxes in a structured, legal, safe market where the threat of crime isn't happening, rates of teen drug abuse are dropping, how can you ignore that? They're leaving so much money on the table, and banking isn't available, and you're driving black market across these other markets. It just doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. And in these red states like Alabama in the South and Mississippi, the laws being floated for medical cannabis aren't coming from Democrats, it's coming from Republicans. Mm-hmm. That says something. Mm-hmm. It's the one issue Americans all agree on is legal weed. Mm-hmm. So I think the catalyst personally will be the United States. It's hard to have large local markets unregulated by the feds. It's hard to have a northern partner in Canada with a legal market, and then a neighboring country in Mexico squashing the cartels of legal drugs and not having it in the States. That makes zero sense. Right. So once North America goes, the world will follow. Right. You're seeing the U.S. is driving it anyway. I mean, medical passed in California 96, 99, I forget which it is. 96. And look what's happening. It's democratized medicine, man. The people are demanding this stuff, not politicians.
Right.
If there's one dark horse in this race, it's Western Europe. People are sleeping on Western Europe. Where in the world do people have the disposable income to buy the whole spectrum of price points of products, high end to low end? It's Western Europe. It's Western stable democracies. It's Japan, and they're not going to go anytime soon in terms of going legal. Hemp, CBD, yes. THC, I don't see it happening anytime soon. It's North America, meaning US, Canada, and it's Western Europe. It's all the OECD countries, the G8, G10, whatever you want to call it. Western Europe is a massive economy rivaling the size of the US and only second to China in a lot of ways, or sort of second or third to China. That economy is going to blow up. There is a lot of demand for cannabis, and not a lot of American companies are looking at Western Europe. Mm-hmm. We're looking at Western Europe very closely in our roadmap. It's tough to go to places that you don't speak English. That's just the reality of it, unless you get translators, and that's just tough to do business, someone speaking. So it's US, it's UK, and then Europe is on our roadmap. That to me is like If they go first before us, that's what's game changing. Very, very strong science core in Germany and in France and even in Spain. If they go first and legalize, the U.S. is going to be pretty far behind, I think.
I've seen improvements in Malta with their medical marijuana program. There's a blunt rolling manufacturer in Poland. And so there's a lot of automation actually opportunities from the Netherlands to Germany for grinders and joint and blunt rolling machines. The tobacco manufacturers are really slow for transitioning, but that's a hub for automation.
Yeah, you just nailed something that I think I didn't think about, but you're right. Automation is going to change the game. Automation and AI are going to disintermediate, I think, lots of jobs in the industry.
And we're all over it here at the Talking Hedge, AI and automation with pre-rolls, joints, and blunts. Lots of videos in the last 5 years with that, and in fact, there's some companies that are going to be launching pre-roll machines at MJ BizCon, 3,000 to 3,600 a minute, fully automated, twist the tops. So we'll be reporting on that for sure. One thing I wanted to note about legalization is the possibility of an economic downturn. There's a $1 trillion transportation package that's been done, sitting in a drawer in the administration in DC for 3 years, waiting for an economic collapse. And so we're at all-time highs in the stock market. So sin stocks have an inverse relationship. So when everything collapses, including cannabis, look for your sin stocks, any vice, which is defensive stocks, plus tobacco, alcohol, cannabis. I think that there's going to be a $1 trillion package that's called legalization right behind that transportation bill. But it's going to take an economic collapse because Republican constituents need an excuse to vote for somebody. And so when you have to say, well, we had to generate revenue, that's a reason enough for being able to get that leeway.
You mentioned something that I think very few people see coming. That is the downturn. And it could be one of the uglier ones we've seen in a long time. Who knows when it's coming? Maybe it's 2020, maybe 2021, who knows? In my thinking, and I don't know, I'd love to get your thoughts on this, we've been living in this realm of magic money, of money printing and electrons, which is great, don't get me wrong, we're in that era. I tend to think that in the future, the world of physical things are going to matter again. So the ability of molecules in plants, physical products, farmland. So when I look at the future, I 100% agree with you. I think they're going to have the new deal, which will be massive infrastructure spending on transpo, legalization to stimulate new job creation and innovation, just taking the reins off a lot of these sort of industries that have been nascent for a while.
We call that helicopter money, and that's the final indicator to get the hell out. You've already seen gold repatriation from different countries. You've seen Russia create an alternative to SWIFT. You've seen China create an alternative to Brent and crude when everyone who before them got murdered.
Literally murdered.
Yeah, I mean, Hussein, he tried to sell in euros. You can't sell gold for euros. But now Saudi Arabia is selling oil for without using US dollars. So the petrodollar is done and has been since Obama made Iran the head of OPEC. And so that whole agreement we've had in place since 1972 after getting off the dollar standard is gone. So the US dollar as a world currency is over. The printing of the money, the helicopter money, has made Russia get rid of all of our treasuries. China has a ton. Japan got rid of their treasuries. So if China gets rid of all of our treasuries, we're toast. And we've already extended the average 40-year world currency by about double that, 30 years or 40 years over the average. And so I think we're at a time when physical things will be more important, like physical gold and silver will be. And so South Carolina is already passing a bill that Utah and several other states have, which allows for using precious metals as currency.
Agreed.
And you can barter cannabis too. There's going to be opportunities where I think people will grow outside and then have their own vegetables because glyphosate is in Cheerios. And so when you can't trust big ag, wondering why birds are falling from the sky and bees are dead, you got to look at all of the chemicals that are in your stuff. So going for a more holistic approach, whether it's to cure epilepsy or boredom, cannabis has an option, and people are going to shift away from alcohol and pharma and go towards products like Deepcell with Emerald and Ruby and whatever else you guys are putting out.
I mean, to speak to your point, exactly. So in that future where physical things matter, where you have affordable medicine with things like CBD and cannabinoids, you also have the recreational aspect of escapism and downtimes with the sin stocks. Things are lining up for cannabis to become sort of this really interesting opportunity in a potentially dark time in the future. So
there's opportunity, right? I mean, if you look at it from that opportunistic standpoint, if for case in point, let's say you have $1 and you lose 50%, you have 50 cents. Yeah. But let's say you gain 50%, you only have 75 cents.
That's right.
Right? So there's a massive opportunity to make a lot of money really, really fast on the downside, and then kind of make that on the way back up. It's going to take longer. But nonetheless, the podcast is obviously looking through the lens of finance. Everything is through dollars and cents. This is really all about money. It's not about epilepsy. It's not about health. This is all about money, unfortunately. People like you and I, we care. We care about individuals who have epilepsy. But the market, the regulators, they don't. And that's my opinion. But hopefully we can present them with money generating tax opportunities so that we can at least legalize it for people like your sister and Cecilia at Nana's Secret who has epilepsy, and individuals like me going through football pains and broken injuries and whatever else. I need it daily myself, even though on the outside I look normal. Well, we all need it for one reason or another, whether it's stress because you hate your job, or just to alleviate some pain remedy.
That's another thing. I think one maybe final point I'll make is a lot of people think you take CBD to fix a thing. I have anxiety today, I'm going to take CBD. That's sort of the Band-Aid on the issue. CBD is a very fundamental and powerful tool for homeostasis, keeping you in balance. So a lot of times people will feel anxious or have inflammation because their endocannabinoid system isn't producing enough endogenous endocannabinoids, and CBD is used to help keep that balance. So I see it almost as like a daily supplement versus an acute. So it's modal, I mean daily, versus I need it because I'm hurting or my back hurts.
Let's touch on that on another episode. I want to have you come back, so we'll cut it off here if you agree to come back on the Talking Hedge. So I want to talk about, on another episode, the difference between Cannabinoid Hyperemesis Syndrome and endocannabinoid deficiency, because those are two very important things that you're not giving your body what it needs, and then when you do, you're giving it this hot dog water distillate that's freaking your body out. For me, green crack is too edgy. I can't do it. So there's certain strains out there. Bottom line is I'm not a quitter. I'm going to keep trying stuff until I find out.
Finding your profile.
That's it. Yeah. And there's great technology out there that maybe we can bring somebody in from Leafly or Headset, talk about some data and what it does. But yeah, with that, I think we're going to roll this one up. I'm Josh Kincaid. This is the Talking Hedge. I want to thank my guest, Kelly Ogilve. He's the founder and CEO of Deepcell. Appreciate you being on the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't, and I'm out.
By the way, if you enjoy the content, please show your support with the cushy gesture of $4.20 a month on the Talking Hedges Patreon page. This will kind of help you spread the word. I've been asked to speak all over the world, from Toronto and Colombia, Spain, Miami, all over, Tokyo. But your support's important to me. I haven't monetized the podcast. I want to be as authentic and transparent as possible. I want to avoid conflicts of interest or even the perception of paid opinions. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or pay me on the Talking Hedges Patreon page, or don't, and I'm out.